In the final weeks of January leading up to February, the Russians were desperately talking to the Ukrainians saying, please, let's just solve this thing. We don't want to go to war. We don't want to go to war. Finally, they had no choice. February 24th, because the Ukrainians were building up a military force ready to strike into the Donbass. Remember that military force that Angela Merkel said we have to buy time to build so they could do this? Well, it was built and they were ready to rock. So the Russians preempted it. Article 51, collective self-defense, preemptive self-defense. It's lawful under thing. You have an imminent threat, you respond to it. The Russian goal wasn't just to stop the imminent attack. It was to get the Ukrainians back to the negotiating table. They never wanted to defeat the Ukrainian army or to occupy Kiev. All they wanted to do is pressure the Ukrainians to go to the negotiating table. 6 days after they crossed the border, the first negotiation began in Gomel. There were 3. In April, early April, they had a 4th negotiation in Turkey where they completed a treaty. It was signed off on both sides, sent back. They were supposed to it was in March. They were supposed to get back on 1 April in Istanbul to finish this thing. The war would have been over. The war would have been over. And what were the Russians going to give them? All of the territory they occupied since February 24 was going back. They weren't there for territorial acquisition. They weren't there to steal Ukrainian territory. They made a good faith measure, by the way. In accordance to the agreement, they said, we're going to withdraw from Kiev and from Sumy. And when you sign it, we'll withdraw from Kharkov. We'll withdraw from Kherson. We'll withdraw from Zaporizhia. Donetsk, or the Donbass, Donetsk and Lugansk, will become independent. They declared it's not our business. We can't undo that. What we want is international people to come in and see a referendum about what they want to be. Independent with Russia, with Ukraine. Let them decide. A fantastic agreement. And Ukraine walked away from it.
I want to give you a closing chance to give us a closing word here. What is do you have a timeline? Do you think of, like what if I had to ask you, how do you see this conflict ending? And if you could give us some type of a timeline, I know that's pretty hard to do, but I'd like to give you that opportunity, or just give us some closing comments on this situation.
Well, I just ask everybody to remember that war is an extension of politics by other means. So this isn't going to end until there's a political solution. I've always, for the last several months, have been saying that I thought the first thing that would happen would be the military defeat of Ukraine, followed by the political collapse of Ukraine, and that Russia would govern itself accordingly. Therefore, I believe that Russia would achieve the political defeat of the Ukrainian military sometime at the end of the summer or early fall. So we have up until the end of October. I still think that we're on that timeline, that Russia will strategically defeat the Ukrainian military. And there's a lot of people in the mass media starting to reach that objective. You mentioned Seymour Hersh's article. There's other articles like that. I think Zelensky's running into problems abroad. Poland is basically divorcing with Ukraine as we speak. Germany is starting to distance itself. We have problems here in the United States. And so if I'm the Russians and I'm looking at this and knowing that this thing is resolved politically, it might be in the interest of Russia not to put pedal to the metal on the military side, losing tens of thousands of men that you don't want to lose, and rather just continue to gradually put the pressure on the Ukrainians, not to freeze the conflict, but to keep putting the pressure on them militarily, trying to provoke a political collapse, and you achieve the same result with that. So that could extend the timeline militarily, but this war isn't going to drag on forever.